sometimes just to kickstart it. Cool. We should be live, hopefully. Everyone, Jay, just let us know that we are live. I'll see who we got in chat. So, evening, Greg. Hey, Russell. Hey, Russell. 2 Russells in. Hey, Vivian. Hey, Mark. Ooh, so we've got a few people in. Oh, hey, Dark Reptiles. So, welcome everyone to the Monday evening stream, and we are joined this evening by Grace of Reptiles Etc. Now, for anyone who perhaps hasn't heard of you, and who are you and what is Reptiles Etc?
Okay, so first of all, thanks for having me, Phil. It's really nice to be here. And for those of you that haven't heard of me or come across me before, my name's Grace, and my company is Reptiles Etc, which is a very, very general term, actually. We have the slogan education, action, and introductions. So the education is where we're taking animals into schools right up to university level and beyond. We work a lot with the vet schools at Bristol and all over the place. The action part refers to the film work we do. So I train animals for film and TV and media productions. And then the introductions, I always joke for my sins, is taking animals out to kids and grown-ups parties and events as well. So everything in between. So it's not just reptiles, there's a lot of etc as well. So we've got owls here and a few mammals and lots of bugs. And I even have fish, which trained by film as well.
That's really cool. So yeah, the whole mixed bag. So well, for those who don't know, I know you from the zookeeping background and stuff.
Yes, I probably should have said that. Yeah, I was a career zookeeper originally. So I started my first paid zoo job in 2002, which happened to be at a zoo that also trained animals for TV and film, which is kind of how I got my foot in there. And obviously doing a lot of voluntary in zoos and wildlife parks before that. And at some point along the line, moved down to Shepherd's Wildlife Park, which is where Phil and I met. But we still see each other out quite a lot, don't we, on the Biaza and General Conference circuit. The reptile keeping world is a small.
The reptile and invert world in zoos is fairly small, so we all know each other, and we're always bringing in people that.
Yeah.
Hey, Amy. Hey, Jackson. So you got a whole host of animals. Done the zookeeper. Now we do things like the parties and stuff. So that goes down the route of AAL, the Animals Activities License for here in the UK. For anyone not in the UK, we are joined by people in the Netherlands and people in the US as well tonight.
Oh, amazing. Wow. Oh, yeah. So there's a lot of legislation that we have to have now for doing anything that, they say any commercial purposes. So from my point of view, I require that for doing parties, entertainment, filming, even going into schools, even the educational stuff. Technically, somebody's paying me for services. So I need that animal activities license, which replaced the former legislation, which was the performing animals license, which was just actually a registry. You didn't have to pay for that. But that went extinct. No, you didn't. You literally just had to write to them and kind of tell them where you lived. And they just went, oh, here you go. So it was more like a registry. Only needed additional supplementation if you had anything under the Dangerous Wild Animals Act here in the UK, which obviously, you need inspections and pay extra for that and renew it regularly and whatnot. The AAL, you also have to provide proof of your qualifications and experience. You have to list all your animals. They ask for the dimensions of all your enclosures as well, and your substrates and records and all that kind of stuff. And they do an inspection a minimum of every 3 years when you renew or you apply for renewal, and they can do midterm inspections as well. And that kind of regulates us all. I mean, it's not perfect, but it's better than what was in place before. There is certainly not everyone with an AAL, I would say, is created equal. Not everybody is from professional backgrounds, which is fine. There are people that aren't from professional backgrounds that have amazing welfare. Just as there are plenty of people from professional backgrounds that don't have great welfare. So, but yeah, it's a starting point, and I think and hope that we'll see the legislation get a bit more streamlined and refined as time goes on to kind of get the standards higher for professionals.
Yeah, good. My parents have an AAL, and it's definitely improved. They've had had a second inspection this year to renew it, and it was the same person, and it was like definitely improved on the first inspection that they had in terms of like
in terms of what their knowledge and their confidence,
the inspector's knowledge was and that's it. And I mean, that was kind of across the board, it seemed, with everyone, because that was obviously the big, when it came in place, there was a big talk point of anyone doing displays at country shows, everyone was sort of, how was your inspection? And everyone got inspected so differently to each other and stuff.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The problem with it is that for anyone that doesn't have an AAL or hasn't heard of it before, even though it's countrywide legislation that was put together by DEFRA with the guidance of industry specialists, it's actually not regulated, and the inspections don't happen by nationwide specialists. It's actually then down to each individual county council to interpret the guidelines as they see fit and carry out the inspection. So in the majority of cases, you've got people that don't even have dogs or cats, or aren't animal professionals or come from any type of welfare background, going into homes and facilities and kind of just checking off the boxes, really not actually being aware of, actually, is that UV, or what do these temperature records mean? Am I going to spot if they're good or bad or whatever? And I think I would hope that most have got on courses, but even then, doing a sort of 2-day course for because it's not just reptile collections like ours, is it, Phil? These people are also carrying out inspections on dog breeding facilities and dog walkers, and like riding stables and everything. So it's bonkers, really, that they haven't got specialists. I know there are lots of us currently that have AALs that would really quite like, I would be delighted to be invited to take on inspection duties, and I'm sure a lot of other people that do consultancy like I do would be up for that. But
I mean,
I think that in the future we'll probably see it go that way.
That's it, and more along the lines of a zoo inspection, almost, of where you got vets involved and stuff. And so with the zoo license inspection, you have a whole team of people that come around, and that's not even perfect either. But I mean, it's definitely, I think it's improved over the years. I was very much in favour of AAL coming in, but I felt it was kind of rushed quite a bit, a little kind of thing, and it was like, right, everyone's going to be inspected straight away, and it's all like, oh, hang on a minute. The thing perhaps should have, done the shops or whatever, done the, broken up in stages kind of thing, because some of the stories I've heard from others is sort of like, well, that wasn't an inspection. And they were like, no, what was this kind of thing?
And on the flip side, some of my professional colleagues who train animals for films primarily, who have literally been doing it at the absolute top of their game and are sort of, renowned for what they do and have been doing it for 30, 40 years, have had immense problems getting their license. And as a result of their councils being so slow, have been operating without their license for 3 years because they physically cannot make their council come and inspect them. And they're like, look, I've got all my stuff. My application was from 4 years ago, and they've got the paper trail, and they're still being told you they can or can't do this or this or this.
Yeah. Well,
it's tough. It's tough. I know a guy that ended up having to, who was absolutely famous for what he still is, for what he does. And again, filming, ended up having to get rid of or relocate like 3/4 of his collection because he was told he had too much, spend like 30 grand on fences and new enclosures, pay extra to have a zoo inspector and a vet come out because they apparently had concerns. And when the inspectors, the actual specialists arrived, they said, well, where are all your animals? You could have loads here. And he was like, I know. And, and he's looking at packing it in, before his next renewal because he's just totally done in for it. It's such a anyway. We could bitch about it all day, couldn't we? It's a tough old thing. But, on the whole, like I think the likes of you and I generally are all for legislation like this, aren't we?
I think it's
it just needs to be like managed better.
That's it. A lot of us wanted it for many years. Something there to go to legitimize what people were doing in terms of animal displays and going into schools and stuff. Not just anyone with an animal going in and teaching people about animals and stuff. Jim's joined.
I just saw Jim's comment. Sorry, Jim, we're going to move on rapidly.
We will move on from there. No, it's a headache. Hey, Jeremy. Hey, Philip. But it's important that anyone out there who's either looking at doing animal display, I believe it's still okay. So inverts are not part of AO, I believe they're still exempt.
You're correct. Yeah, you're correct. So pretty much anyone can start a business, and I mean you'd be sensible to get in public liability insurance and a DBS check. But there's currently no legislation other than DWA listed species for licensing for invertebrates.
That's it. But yeah, if you're looking at doing things with, if you've got reptiles and looking at doing like the odd children's party here and there, get a license and to get inspected and stuff, and look at all the minimum standards that put on. Try and go above minimum standards if you can.
For sure. I would say as well something, because there's still a lot of people that aren't aware about it, including some people that run their own animal agencies. And I get people telling me all the time, oh, my dog would be great for filming. Oh, do you want my dog on your books or blah, blah, blah. I don't actually do anything with dogs other than when I'm assisting another company that gets me all my exotic work. It's a whole other ball game. But I will say there are some agencies out there for you guys to be aware of, especially those of you that have got larger collections. There are a few agencies at the moment that will tell you that they're going to make your pet famous and pet celebrity or whatever. Oh, I'll put your bearded dragon on an advert or whatever. And most of these agencies don't actually hold their own licensing in-house, and a lot of them will register you, and their websites are really nice. And you think, oh yeah, that'll be a fun day out, go and do some filming. A lot of them will send regular owners out to do film work without supervision of somebody that's worked in media and film before to kind of offer guidance and management and whatever. You just sort of get thrown out there on your own, and suddenly you're into a very grey area regards the law if you're being paid by that agency and they don't have a rep there with a license and you don't have a license. But it's crazy that this still goes on. And I think a lot of times the everyday person goes into it completely ignorant, not in a bad way, just like not knowing.
That's the thing.
There is still stuff like that going on, which is quite alarming really, considering all the hoops the rest of us have had to jump through. But I would say if you do get approached by an agency, ask them about their licensing.
I think that's really good advice, because you do see things like that every now and then. And, even for someone like me, I wouldn't necessarily know, obviously, a good agency from a bad agency and stuff without having done, it's not something I've ever done. So, for people that perhaps have been approached or are even thinking of how do you get into doing, animals on commercials and TV shows and films and stuff. How does someone do that? Or how do you do that?
Usually quite by accident. Usually it's quite accidental. So for me, it was starting a work experience placement as part of my college course that just happened to be at a zoo that also primarily functioned for TV and film. And I actually got in touch with them after seeing them on a BBC documentary and writing to the BBC and saying, who are these people? I want to write to them. So most of the people that work with me are people I've met through the zoo industry, and I've just sort of gone, oh, I liked you. You're going to come and help me out, or, because I can call on favors from other professionals. The great thing about having friends who are all zookeepers is most of you are on rolling rotas. So you have random days off. So if I'm stuck short notice and I need a pair of hands that I can trust with the animals, that's how I get my assistance. I also have a network of volunteers and usually students that come and do their placements one day a week or whatever with me. And that's a great way to get your foot in and your face known. If you're looking at setting up your own company doing it, I wouldn't advise you set up a company to try and just specialize in film, because there isn't a lot of money in it and you'd need a significant side hustle or to be also working other facets of your business like I do. And I've had side hustles for many, many years. It's only now that I'm kind of, everything I do is primarily, animal and business oriented. But yeah, definitely, if you're interested in getting into it, approach companies that already do it and just see if you can go out and volunteer and shadow, because it is not what you imagine. And most people will do a couple of days out and go running for the hills, or just like, that's not for me. And if you're wondering why, it's very, very long days. And mostly actually driving at silly hours, AM and PM, and a lot of sitting around and lots of being out in the weather, being very uncomfortable. There's like just very, very boring mostly and not very glamorous at all. So you kind of get used to it, and then suddenly it's really high stress while you're doing your thing, like now, and you come away and you're like really pumped, and then you're just like sitting around for hours or days or weeks again. Sometimes you can sit on standby, bearing in mind you're getting up at 3 or 4 a.m. to get your own animals done first, or to get everything prepped to travel properly and whatever. They haven't called you until 10 o'clock the night before with the call time or the location, because everything's last minute. And driving around the M25 at 4 or 5 in the morning for multiple days, sit there all day for a 10-hour plus day, because remember, 10-hour working day, but they'll call you for breakfast at 7 and the call time will be 9, something like that. So 10 hours starts from 9 o'clock. And then you sit there doing nothing, literally. Sometimes I think when I did Stardust, we sat there in the back of the truck for 6 weeks before we actually did anything.
Wow.
Yeah. And back then we didn't have smartphones.
And
I'd tell you what else was a game changer in my world: the sat nav. When the first TomTom came out, that was a game changer, because up until then I was going through London with an A to Z, and that was why you used to need an assistant to be your human sat nav.
That's something that probably no one ever thinks about when they sit down watching the film. They see probably think, oh, it's a 2-minute clip that probably took 10 minutes max or whatever.
Totally, yeah. And a lot of times we might film for days and days and days, and then you go to the cinema or you tune into whatever program it's on, and you're like, oh wait, where's my bit? And it all went in the bin. There's so much they cut out. I filmed like a really intense day on the latest Wonder Woman film. What was it, 1980, 84?
Something like that.
The most recent one that came out. Yeah. And coordinated some cows on that. And it was in the middle of that heat wave. So it was like 28 degrees. We were on the back lot up at Leavesden, Warner Brothers. So anyone that's been to the Harry Potter studio tour, right behind that, it's still a working studio. And way up the end, there's this big open expanse called the back lot. So it's like an outdoor location. They can build things up. This green screen around this area. you know, as high as like a 3-story building, so they can drop in a different background. And we're there with these, it's big enough to drive a car in, and they had like 50 odd extras, which are now called essays, by the way. SA stands for supporting artist, and they get quite upset if you call them extras.
Okay.
So they had all these essays, and we had 6 cows there. So they'd had to put some big gazebos up for us. We basically created like a cow stable right next to the set. And we've got several of our handlers dressed in costume as well, because you're not just going to give a cow to a random person. And the cows were all dotted around, and some of them were loose, so we kind of baited them in with food. And they were already very experienced cows that were used to, you know, they were like show cows. So they go to these public events all the time, so perfect for filming. And but it's not completely secure set, and there's a bit of a live internal road up one bit. What they didn't tell us was that they were going to put fans as high as and wide as your living room, a couple of giant fans blowing rubbish and trash and bits of paper and posters across the whole set, as well as a car coming in at high speed, and people, and they expect these cows to just sit there. I'm like, oh, normally they tell you about these little details, and you'd say, no, you can't blow trash at a cow because it'll go mental and someone will get, you know, trampled. The cows, bless them, were really, really amazing. Such a tough day. Gal Gadot and Chris Pine are running backwards and forwards and all this. So we go to the cinema well excited. We just had such a tough day, just keeping everyone cool, running and fetching water, you know, the whole time to keep everyone hydrated and whatever. And they didn't use any of it. They ended up, it turned out they'd like reshot the whole scene, and they did it in the States the second time, and there was a cow, but it definitely wasn't mine.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, do something like that, and then going, yeah, you're like, I mean, I've done all these days' work, or went through all this rigmarole of company wanting to blow rubbish, blow all this stuff at the animals and stuff, and then wait a minute, haven't even used any of it anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a tough one, because I mean, you accept all that stuff. It's not the reason we do it, but you know, the biggest challenges are like weather and like kind of balance. You've got to maintain animal welfare, but also deliver a product at the end of the day. You know, your animals have to kind of perform, and you have to have a happy client, because if it's like a big deal like that one, you know, if you cock it up, you're never going to get hired again, because it's such a small world. You know, you're very much, you know, speaking of getting into it, so much of it is just word of mouth, you know, and like the companies you work for and their reputations and whatever. Like, I'm really super lucky that well, the reason I'm managing now as a freelancer is just people I met along the journey when I was working in house for someone else, you know, and then people went, and then when they find out I'm not working for another company, my phone starts ringing, and they're like, hey, I remember you from that scorpion job. Can you come and do a job for me? So I am very, very lucky. But it's been a lot of hard work, and I've kind of, I guess, at some point made the right impression for some people. But yeah, I do owe most of it to that particular scorpion job way back when for Jill Raddings, who was the head honcho of Stunt Dogs and Animals. And we did that I was working in-house for Amazing Animals, Heathrop Zoo Gardens, and took a scorpion for an episode of Midsummer Murders, you know, where they'd kind of included it as a bit of a red herring. And the manager of Stunt Dogs, Jill, happened to end up being the stunt double for the actress, because I think at the last minute they decided they didn't want the actress to have a scorpion on her, because, you know, scorpions, whatever's dangerous, or they freaked out. It's an emperor scorpion, you know what I mean? And so Jill was tiny and the same kind of dimension, so she was like, fuck it, I'll just do it. And she was quite scared, but she was like, it was her company and her reputation on the line, and she'd been doing like a billion seasons of Midsummer, and she was there with dogs. So she got into costume, and the shot was in a little runaround car, you know, like a Peugeot 206 or something. It was really fun. So she's playing the driver, and she sat there, and the camera and the cameraman and the sound man were in the back of the car looking over, like, so it would be her point of view. So they're kind of leaning over in the back. I'm hiding in the passenger front footwell, wrangling this scorpion that had to go on her lap, and it kept like disappearing between her legs, and I'm just I was like 19 years old or something. I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry, I've just got to put, is it okay if I just put my hand down? And she's like, just put the fucking scorpion.
Yeah, that's not possible to be pinched or stung potentially.
But it was evidently a defining moment for her, and she was like, gonna keep her in my phone book. That was okay. But yeah, I saw someone comment gutting when they don't use it. Yes, it is. There's, I mean, I'm pretty used to it at this point. It's even more gutting when you're in it in costume as well, doing some stunt stuff, and they're like, "Oh, I'm on the cutting room floor somewhere."
That's it. Yeah, I can fully imagine. I suppose, you know, probably saying with a lot of essays, and then where they go and do a lot of things, and then it's just cut or stuff, and in some ways it's saying, even things like with YouTube videos that a 10-minute YouTube video only takes maybe 20 minutes to make, and actually can take hours to make. And
tell me about it.
2-minute clip in a film, you never think, that may have taken, that person may have been there 10 hours, more weeks for just to do that one little tiny clip, and then to go,
for sure.
Weeks, and then it's not even used. It's all like, that's must be quite heartbreaking in some ways.
Yeah, you get used to it, but yeah, the YouTubing thing, like, I've got so much respect for you and everyone that does it, because I mean, like, I'm not very good at technology, and for years and years, even when we were at Shepherd's, people used to tell me, have a YouTube channel, or you should do some videos and blah blah. I'm like, yeah, I'm really busy and I'm not very technologically. I even hate my phone, and as you've noticed now, I do have an Instagram channel that is like a video channel. I try and do some uploads, and I know during the pandemic I was able to do more, and I know it entertained lots of people's kids, which was wonderful, because I just assumed no one's watching any of them, but people seem to like it. But I mean, I prefer to go very fast and dirty with it, because I don't have the skills or the time to do much more. I love the idea of it. Even that, just kind of clipping and stick a bit of music, I'm like, oh my god, uploading it. I get how people that are very good at it end up getting paid as, to be full-time content creators or sponsored or whatever. But I find it really hard.
Hey, Robbie. Hey, Leah. Liz in the bath again. So, anyone who does have any questions at all, do put them in chat, and we'll ask Grace questions. Nothing about upcoming projects, because we can't divulge any information about upcoming things, because when it comes to films, I think you probably have to sign a whole load of non-disclosure.
Oh my gosh!
Probably a lot of NDAs that go around.
We sign our soul away. Yeah, I did one in costume this time last week with some big goats, and I was coordinating it as well. And it was one of the size of which, and when we did Fantastic Beasts, it was exactly the same, where if you are an SA, you're there in costume, or most members of the crew as well. Actually, when you go through at the beginning and you do your COVID test, because we're all still doing PCR testing and all that kind of stuff, because if your main actor gets sick for a week, that's like millions lost or whatever. And they take your phone off you, and you put it in a locker. A big beefy dude protects it all day, and then you get it back at the end of the day. Now, for those of us that are doing like stunts or animal coordinating, whatever, we obviously really need our phones so we can contact the members of our team. They don't give you radios or anything like that. But it meant, because I was in costume as well, they kept thinking I was a random essay that had like snuck my phone in my pants or something. So whenever I make a call, there's someone coming up to me like, what are you doing? I'm like, animal handler. Or like, if I walked anywhere without my like crew jacket, you'd get stopped, because they'd think I'd like strayed off, and because people can make a lot of money, even though like tabloid papers aren't really what they used to be. There's still all these online, people just will pay money for even a crap photo of a film set, or like when we were on The Witcher, I remember seeing some pictures made the news, and I think I was in the back of one of them. It wasn't a very good picture. We had blankets around us and the weather was crap and it was from about a million miles away. But someone's probably made 50 quid taking it with a drone and sending it, or whatever. But yeah, so they're very, very sensitive about it. So yeah, I can talk about it when it comes out. I have to be quite tactical up until then. I just saw Harry mention dangerous snakes in films. I don't know.
Hi Harry.
Hi Harry. So I personally don't keep any DWA at my current place because I just don't have the facility for it. And the truth is, nowadays, people just don't want to touch it with a barge pole. I get people, even for me, like taking Burmese pythons and which I think are legitimately potentially dangerous species, although they're not on license, of course. But when I take large snake species out, the risk assessments and just the fear and the fuss and I think in some cases rightly so, because there have been cases of actors and other people getting bitten by big snakes that haven't been wrangled or trained carefully or handled appropriately or whatever. That's just like not really I mean, for me, I don't want a snake biting anyone, whether we regard it as dangerous or not, because that means the snake's not having a good experience.
It's a bite's a bite, and you're just like, I don't want any bite.
Yeah, exactly. I'm more interested in the animal's welfare point of view, but of course, you can't be going and having an A-list actor injured by one of your animals. That's just career suicide. But many years ago, and I think because of that, because of the red tape, because of the risk and the costs involved, not many companies even want to touch venomous anymore. So but I used to work with a fairly large collection of venomous when I was in-house at Amazing Animals, Heathrop Zoo Gardens, and we had a couple of different large cobras. We had a few different types of rattlesnakes. We had gaboon viper there at one point, rhinoceros viper, although they were more like the pet project of me and the guy that owned the place. I don't think they did any work. We had a mangrove snake that did bits and pieces. We had white-lipped vipers in for a job. But the only thing, the venomous ones that tend to get the work were the cobras or the rattlesnakes, the ones that you can't really imitate with anything else. And for that kind of stuff, you've got to have a plan in place. You've got to, you wouldn't go and do a job like that on your own. You've got to be really careful about how you control people on the sets and keep your crew safe. You're operating under DWA with separate set of forms, even for transporting. For any DWA that you take off your premises to film, you have to have permission from the council, the local council at the location where the studio or the set is as well, whether it's a rattlesnake or a lion. So there's that. I do kind of miss it, but it is a whole extra layer of stress on top of everything else. Like nowadays they just CG it. Which they do with a lot of stuff anyway, which, we've been worrying about it putting us out of business for years and years, but a lot of times, they'll still use a live animal for a studio day to get their stock images. They don't just go to a library and get stock images. They'll still spend a day filming the real animal and getting it to do the movements that it needs so that the digital artists have something to work with, which is what we did on Maleficent with the raven that transforms into the human. We did a few days with our raven on a green screen, getting him to pick things up and put things down and fly from A to B and move his beak and all this kind of stuff. So I don't think I'm going to go extinct just yet.
No,
sometimes I do feel sad because there is a huge pressure from animal rights activists, which I'm sure all of you guys see. There's a few of you on here that maybe work in pet shops or do education as well, like I do, or parties. You're gonna get heat sometimes. Just there are people that have opinions, don't they? Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I'm not. Do you like working with animals in entertainment? It doesn't sit well for everybody. I can respect other people's opinions, but I'm not going to stand for anyone telling me that my animal's welfare isn't paramount at all times. It's just about the right training and preparation and habituation. And yeah, you know.
So, Liz, I see you've mentioned a few films you have done in the past. But yeah, she missed the first bit, so she's asked what films you have worked on.
Ah, she's
You mentioned a few.
have a boast, yeah. So stuff that I've got that's out at the moment is there's TV stuff as well. So I've got Rats doing bit parts on season 3 of Ted Lasso, season 3 of what's it called, Ladhood, which are both on the telly or telly box. What's just streaming at the moment that I was watching? I'm in costume doing stuff with goats and sheep. Oh no, and herding geese on a new film called, oh my gosh, what was it called? Catherine Called Birdie, which is streaming on Amazon, which is quite a cute film. I've got Rats all the way through season 2 of The Witcher, and I did Little Bugs on there as well. And actually, I did loads of reptile days that they end up not using any of, which was a real shame. I know, loads of mega reptile stuff and loads of scorpion stuff. And I'm in costume on that doing sheep and goats as well. But I'm obviously the most proud of my little bugs and and all the rats that were doing like A to B stuff while actors walked in the other direction and while rain came down, all this really difficult stuff. So that's been a really, really good one. If anyone saw, not super recent now, but if anyone saw the remake of Roald Dahl's Witches with, what the heck's her name, that actress? She was in Devil Made Prada, Devil Wears Prada. You all know who I mean. Anyway, if you saw the new Witches film, you've seen my mice doing little A to Bs and tightrope walking and stuff like that. I did a rap on a movie called Life with Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal. Series-wise, lots of kind of small bits, you know, lots of these like BBC kind of dramas where there's a mouse scurrying in the corner, or, you know, I've done a few bits with Midsummer Murders. Anne Hathaway, well done. Yes, that's what it was. Yeah, lots of Wonder Woman bits. Although I think I worked on every single one of every Wonder Woman, and I'm on the cutting room floor of every single one as well. Same as Fantastic Beasts. Can't win them all. I still got paid. That's the main thing. And I tell you what, you guys are all big bug fans, aren't you? Of course you are.
Yeah, everyone
is. If you haven't watched it, check out a movie called Saint Maud, Saintmaud, starring Morfydd Clark, who's currently in the new Lord of the Rings series on Amazon. So she starred in a horror film that came out Halloween before last. I went to the cast and crew showing at Halloween, which was also on my birthday when they released it. And I'm pretty sure you can still stream it on Amazon or Netflix. And the reason that one's cool and my personal favorite is because I used a giant peppered cockroach. Well, I used a couple of them, but it was one that did all the stuff. And she was actually trained to go to her box and trained to do A to Bs, where we set her up, so straight lines of trajectory. And so when we went to film with her, the roach had to do a few different things. So she had to go up a kitchen cupboard. But any of you that have handled giant peppered cockroaches, they're massive and they're really, really heavy. And she physically couldn't get up the cupboard or up the wall or go on the ceiling. So we had to use green screen. So we laid the special diachromatic green screen fabric on the floor. But she had to run in an exact straight line so that the lighting would be correct and they could pull focus with the camera, because they're still a very small animal. So she had to go exactly in the right direction so that then they could like flip the image and make it look like she was going up the cupboard or crawling across the ceiling. And that was like one of the sequences. And then she had to climb out of a sink, and then she had to do what was really, really hard for a cockroach. She had to go right the way across the floor, but in the open. So it's easy to get an A to B with a mouse or a cockroach along the edge of a wall. But going out in the open of it goes against all their instincts. They just don't want, and she had to go across the floorboards, and then there was a rug and the rug was like maybe 8 mil thick, which if you're a cockroach is like a great big bleeding wall. And normally if they hit something like a rug, they'll skirt around the edge of it, they'll change direction. And she had to like keep going in the straight direction. So anyway, they'd allowed in their schedule 3 hours to get these 3 main shots that they wanted. And because our cockroach Nancy was, I'd already trained, like she was really well trained, she knew what she was going to do. We prepped her. I said, right, give us a marker. So normally if you're working with an actor, they stick like a luminous bit of tape on the floor so they know where to put their feet, and then you might have seen it on behind the scenes stuff. And we sometimes do it for animals as well, like dogs and cats. You can train them, and the rats as well, to go onto a marker, so they've got like a target to aim for. So I'm like, show me the exact line you want so I can put a marker. So and we prepped her, and she just did what she wanted. And they never get anything on the first take. They always need to do it several times from different angles or different focus, or so we did all that, and she was just perfect, and their minds were just blown. And then to do coming out the sink, we had to build a little hidden ramp in the sink, because it was looking from the kitchen like at the edge of the sink, and then you just see her like coming out like this and doing a bit of that. So there was like a hidden ramp for her to come up, and again we prepped and showed her what she had to do, and then she did it. I think we got everything done and more in under an hour. And they were like, well, this cockroach has just made us all look really stupid. And the director was just like so into it. They ended up putting the cockroach's name in the credits.
Nice.
And that's probably never going to happen again in history. I got my name too, so I was very pleased.
So everyone is asked, how do you train a cockroach?
How do you train a cockroach? Training, yeah. So a lot of it is wrangling and me just it's kind of trickery a lot of times. So and choosing the right cockroach for the job as well, because they all have different personalities, just like all the other animals. Some of them are more nervous, some have got more motivation to run or eat. They need to be really well habituated as well, so used to being handled, so they're super tame and they're not freaking out. I find the females for most invertebrate species better than the males. You guys will see this with your own cockroaches and mantids and whatever. A lot of the times the males are a bit woo. So I find that the female peppered cockroach is better and steadier. So basically interview lots and lots of cockroaches, just hang out with them, play with them, get them to walk around, see how they respond to me, see if they're willing to take treats as well. So if I'm training them to run into a box, I did a little dish of jam or sugar water or something like that they really like. Start them really close to the box, and I always start them against the ledge, and then gradually increase the distance and give them it. Oh, also I black out the box, which is something I do for mice and rats as well, because then you've got hiding in the dark is as rewarding for them as the food itself. So you've got like a double reinforcer, and then just gradually building up the distances. And then for doing stuff out in the open on the day, I will prep them against a plank and make sure they don't diverge anywhere else, because just like you've rightly said, there's scent going on, and they'll lay their own scent trail. So you have to coach them so they don't go anywhere else. And then when you take the plank away and set them, they will follow the invisible trail that they've already laid down and make you look like a total boss. It doesn't work perfectly every time. You have to take into account everything else that's going on around and having the right animal. And also you don't want to over prep and then they get tired, because a meter or 2 meters is a really long way if your legs are only like an inch long. So it's kind of just judging it right. Or like if I'm doing the same thing with rats, I'll put a minimum of 2 weeks practice in, and I'll practice them up to 4 or 5 times a day, and I will build up the duration of the run so that they physically get very, very fit as well. There's no good just getting it once or twice, just like a purser, or you're training for a 5k, you're not going to run 5k on your first time out, because it would be horrible. And with the rats as well, and actually with the cockroaches to an extent, but especially with rats and mice, I practice them going in the car for an increasing duration of time. because just doing a car journey is really stressful for small animals. So you need them really robust and normalize that so that they're not scared or tired out by the time you get there, and then they just can't focus on what they're doing. And the rats, I'll take and practice them in different locations as well, because otherwise they just get used to the secure. And I'll practice them with the window open. That's always a massive game changer, because the wind comes in and they're all like, oh, you know, like, oh, you know, because they're worlds apart from us with their senses. So you've got to think about all those stimuli that might not affect us, but if you're, you know, this big, it's going to make a big difference to you. So it's kind of accounting just as many different changing things as possible. So then whatever you get to on the day, your animals are able to sort of filter out, you know, what they don't need to worry about, and like focus on what they're doing.
That's it. That's been cool. Got lots of questions going. So Greg, 8 legs, 4 wheels. Opinion on celebrity animal trials. I'm sure we can all be very opinionated on that.
We can. Yes, I am very opinionated on that. I don't like it.
No.
I'm not, and you know, and I'll tell you what, and I don't know if, who knows, maybe the person that provided the animals for that is watching this right now. I don't know. I do actually know who did it. And so many of us that work in the industry didn't know for such a long time. Makes me wonder what the opinion of the person that actually did provide the animals even thinks about what they're doing, because every effort was made to keep it very, very quiet, which is
that's it.
I can only, you know, I wasn't there. I wasn't on the ground. I think the stuff, personally, from what I've seen on the television, I won't watch it. I don't want to give it my ratings. But, you know, from 10 years ago, yeah, if I'm around someone's house and something's come on and I'm like, Jesus Christ, you know, the stuff they do in Australia, I'm not actually sure how they think that. I know they do that. Oh, we had an animal specialist and animals weren't harmed. And you're thinking, well, hang on, I've just watched somebody crawl through a pit 2 feet deep with baby crocodiles and bearded dragons and iguanas, and I can see them biting each other and the people in the tank. So straight away, you can't say that animals' welfare isn't compromised because they're biting, or, you know, and they're getting crushed, or even the stuff with the insects. Yeah, it's just so like disrespectful. There's just no way. I wonder how many animals die a day after filming, or a week after filming, or a month after filming because of their internal injuries or the stress they've been subjected to.
Probably quite high, especially with the inverts involved. I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I saw going in what I got shown, and it was like one of, you know, them having to hold live spiders in their mouth, and like, what are you doing that? Like, what?
Yeah,
that's going to be super for those spiders.
Yeah, and of course, then there's all that stuff that it does.
Was it put his hand in like a box with it was either rats or mice, and then stick his hand in with a carpet python, so the carpet python bit him on the hand. And you're like, well, what the hell? You can't.
Yeah, and it's you know, and it's that reinforcing this idea of what a scary animal is and all that kind of stuff as well. And like, I know it's a bit borderline for me because I'm providing animals with bad reputations for horror movies and whatever, so I am a bit of a maybe I am part of the problem. But you know what, when I'm on the film set, every single person there on the crew, which could be 200 people, they want to come and say hi at some point in the day, and you change every single person's mind, and everyone goes away having respect for animals, you know. So it's still, I like to think of it as covert education, even if it's on an immediate level when I'm doing all that stuff.
I think doing so. I mean, a lot of us are horror fans and stuff. I mean, that you know, I mean, I love doing Halloween this way, and you know, a lot of us like wanting a skull in our enclosures and stuff. So we kind of go with the aesthetic a little bit. We don't always help ourselves, but you know, it's. I think there is a difference though between like using them in horror films, but then like using them like that stuff. Jerry's done a couple of events with his inverts, which is awesome.
Oh yeah, love a giant bar mitzvah for sure.
Yeah, Leah does she just does the inverts, nothing else. Over in Wales and stuff. But yeah, she's absolutely fantastic as Leah.
Nice.
I was reading down all the comments.
And I will say as well, going back to I'm a Celebrity, I did expect to see, you could see from the clips that people sent me of when they came over to Wales to do it. And we all thought, oh, yeah, there'll be no animals or the welfare will be better or whatever. And you could see that there were less snakes going in the box with Thrashing Celebrity or whatever. But it's still, I wouldn't have put my snakes in that box with that guy. Do you know what I mean? Or like you could see fear behaviors on the rats. I'd be very surprised if those rats had done film work before, just judging by the behaviors I saw in the clip. But I think there are ways you could use animals in those trials for scaring people with, but there are ways you could do it in a far more controlled way.
That's it.
Yeah. 15 species of rats. No, do you know what? I have this chat with Phil every time I see him at Bug Show, and I'm looking. I love cockroaches, and I would love more species, but I am bound by the stuff that gets used the most, and that sounds all. I love and respect all my animals, but I also am limited on space, and I can't have too many personal projects if they're not also going to contribute to the business. Yes. So cockroach wise, yes. I mean, I always I've got a small colony of hissing cockroaches, because they're just brilliant for parties and they're really nice with the sexual dimorphism and stuff like that, and I like them. But I keep them in a mixed zooterra with ground beetles and Pachnoda, so there's always like fun stuff going on in there. And I've got my breeding colony of peppered roaches, and I think I might have a couple of rogue dominoes in with my giant millipedes. Do you know what? I don't keep any others. I would really, really love to keep some emeralds. I love the glow light, the headlamp cockroaches. At the moment, the only reason I don't is just because I kind of can't accommodate them space-wise, and I have to be kind of ruthless about my pet projects. Actually, do you know what? I tell a lie. I've been working. I had some, and everyone will go, "Oh God!" I had Turkestan red runners that I got in, and I really didn't want to because I'm sure everybody knows about no one really wants to even risk them in their house or anywhere for that matter.
A lot of people do use my food.
Yeah, it's high risk though, isn't it?
It can be.
I feel like it. One female gets into a bioactive tank and it's game over, isn't it? If something doesn't eat it. But yeah, I had to get a load of those in for the first 6 months of this year. I ended up working on a really big project with Kate Blanchett, and that will be coming out next year. And there's a very small scene with a cockroach, so naturally I was there every day for 6 months. And I had to do some stuff with those, which was a living nightmare because they're so small. But they wanted it to look like a native species, which is why I had to go with the closest thing that I could get away with that also was going to read on the camera. That phrase read on camera means for the camera actually to pick it up and see it. And it had to do stuff like running across a kitchen with lots of other crap there and all kinds of places it could disappear and escape forever to, and break lots of wildlife laws in the process. So they're horrible to wrangle and they're not very easy to each other. But thankfully it was only like one hero cockroach that we were using at any given time. But we did do a scene for season 2 of The Witcher with 500 loose hissing cockroaches mixed in with 2,000 fake ones on a set that wasn't completely enclosed, floorboards with gaps, fire in the middle, cameras from both 2 different directions, and an actress that had to have cockroaches on her feet doing a sort of thing around the cauldron while also not treading on cockroaches. And that was really stressful. And I'll tell you what, that was one where I could have wept when it didn't appear in the final show. For anyone that has watched season 2 of The Witcher, you might remember somewhere near the end there's a witch's hut that stands up on legs and moves around. That was the hut that we did it in. And there were loads of scenes of the witch in her hut doing her stuff, but none of the bloody cockroaches. And the buyer had sent me a little bit of the playback, and it looked amazing. I had like three assistants with me. We counted them out, we counted them in, we got every single one. It was a day. And of course we had the thing of trying to keep them warm and comfortable and all that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, they'd started panning really low over the cockroaches, so it was real like Temple of Doom style. It just looked, don't know why they didn't use it. Yeah, very gutted.
It's never know, but yeah, that's yeah. To go through all that, and all that stress. Yeah, oh my god, all these.
And for that one as well, I'd have to go in. I'd had to go in on 2 different occasions, and also done Zoom meetings. We did in-person meetings about just like the logistics of how it was going to be possible. You sit down with the like director and the first and the art people going, okay, this is what we want. Can you do it? How can we do it? Okay, we'll go and have a look at the set, and are we going to make these special barriers? So I have to give them the, instructions on how we're going to make these barriers and block it off here and make it safe and all that, So, and then you just think, wow, God, the budget, you wonder why these things are so high budget, and you assume it's all going on the A-listers, but a hell of a lot of it goes on all the like bits and pieces and stuff. You never, some of them like to be so authentic with their props, and it's like a damn jar in the background costs 30 quid. You're like, yeah, it's bonkers.
Yeah, you never think of that sort of thing at all.
Most people think cockroaches are pests. Yeah, do you know that's why I love doing the cockroach jobs the most? Because I get to like chat to people on set about cockroaches all day, and then people are like, what, they've got different personalities, and oh, you can train a cockroach, and kind of fly the flag for the little brown bugs.
Well, I mean, I do it pretty much on a daily basis. In my bug talk is always like, right, here we go, let's talk about cockroaches. And yeah, if I can hopefully change, or at least get one person thinking something slightly different, I've done my job, kind of thing.
Yeah, like, cool. Exactly. I did a scout group the other day, and they'd asked if we could sort of do a conservation focus, and I was like, brilliant, yeah. So I put in a box different cockroaches, millipedes. So I've got like leaf litter, and I've just got this little section of the rainforest, and I'm like, okay, guys, we're going to start off with the most important animal on the planet, and they're all like, what?
Yeah, it's like about these.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, I tell people, yeah, whatever animals you don't like, they're probably the most important ones.
Well, yeah, someone's got to fly the flag for the small brown things, hey?
And stuff like, and sometimes little tiny. In my talk, I'll mention the fact, flies. We need flies in the world. No one really likes flies, but if we don't have flies, we don't have chocolate, and then that gets people feel like what stuff. That was one of the best things I heard from Erica McAllister, my friend's podcast. I asked her, like, what's the one thing you would say good about flies? Like, well, if you don't like chocolate, you got to have flies, sort of thing. And I was like, there you go. Most people like chocolate.
Yeah. Do you know, funnily enough, I've done a couple of fly jobs in the last year or so. And that's just always a funny one, because again, people are like, how do you train a fly? I'm like, well, I always just go, yeah, I've got mad skills. It's just, it's wrangling and tricks of the trade. I did one, it must be out really soon. I'll probably get away with telling you. And it's called Lord of Misrule, with Tuppence Middleton and some guy that was in Game of Thrones. And he's in this like grotty cottage, and they wanted like flies going up the net curtains and a bit, and that, yeah, we just choose the right, first of all, if I'm doing anything outside, I choose a native species, because then it can legit go if it needs to.
Yep.
At the end of the day, I don't catch every single one. Obviously, I have to be really careful working with exotics because of invasive species legislation. That's why we have to count everything in. Flies on trousers, no, flies like buzzing flies.
So he's making a joke. It's after again, don't say that.
So there's different. Any of you guys that keep predatory stuff like mantids or or dendrobates or whatever will know that, or you might have noticed that different types of flies that are available to you also have different species typical temperaments. So some of them are a bit slower than others. So I tend to go for the slower species, and usually I'll cool them off, keep them nice and cool so they crawl and they don't all bugger off right away, and it's taking the right selection of nets. Or if I have to put them on a dead body, I put some jam where the blood and whatever is, and or even a lot of times for dead bodies I've used raw mincemeat, and I train my rats to eat that if they have to chew at dead bodies. Use raw mince, which looks quite good, and the animal, and then you get that kind of close up of the kind of, or for the rats actually, fried chicken skin is really good because you can tie it or stitch it onto the body, and then you get them like pulling annoying like Maggie skin. But the mince works for flies as well, yeah, or jam. Although I did turn up on a job earlier this year where they booked me for flies, and then I turned up and went to the production office, said, "Hey, I'm here with your flies," and they thought I was taking the piss. They were like, "Are you joking?" I was like, "Definitely didn't just drive 2 hours here for 7 a.m. start for a joke. Can you talk me through the scene and what you want?" And they were like, "Oh, I thought we were CGing the flies." I was like, "Well, no one told me, and someone booked real flies." And it turned out they had planned on doing because I was like, all I know is the flies have got to go on a dead horse, which was going to be a model, I assume. And sure enough, I got there. It's this big, it was outdoors, not indoors. So first of all, I'm like, well, the flies are just going to fuck off, aren't they? And but I'm keeping them in their poly box. I've got my ice on standby for sending them to sleep, and all my nets and whatever. And the shot was so wide, it was like a dead model of a dead horse on a cart in the background. And it turned out they expected the flies to be like buzzing above them. I was like, look, I'm the last person on earth that wants to say this, but go with the CG, mate.
Yeah.
I said, are you going to do a cutaway, like a close-up of the horse's face to show the flies on the eye? And they're like, no, it's Disney. They're not allowed to show a dead horse's face. It has to just be like in the background, really far away, so no one can see. Or it's like an implied dead horse.
Yeah, not gonna work.
I've seen it all. Oh, training tips for rats with 2 girls. I actually personally, I prefer boys. I use boys for all my filming because they're slower and they're a bit thicker and they read better on camera. I don't use the girls for filming because they tend to go off. As you've probably noticed, they usually have their own agenda. But they are very, very clever, and females are better than males for stuff like running on ropes and doing assault courses and stuff like that. The best thing you can do if you want to train your rat is check out a lady on YouTube and on Facebook called Shadow the Rat. Her rats are incredibly well trained, and she has a few how-to videos breaking down how she does the tricks. And all of her, like if you want to do trick training, get them on a clicker. So you can do clicker training just like with a dog or a cat. Although most people don't do it with cats, actually. I should say a dog or any other wild animal that you might work with. So you want to first of all, get them really comfortable feeding from your hand. Find out what treat they really like, which might be just having a lick of some peanut butter off the end of a stick or something tasty like that, or sunflower seed or whatever. And once they're comfortable to take the reward, you can start to click and treat, click and treat, click and treat. And you can develop it from there, because then you've established your language for how to communicate with your rat. And they're such inquisitive creatures, you can get them coming when you call them in no time. Or like for my guys, I run all of mine into shoe boxes because my guys don't really do tricks. They mostly just have to do A to B stuff. So for me, it's about fitness and confidence with them, training them to run in those boxes. But yeah, just keep it really regular, do it every day. And the more stuff you got to do it really regularly. You can't just go, oh, I'm going to train them today and then 3 days later. And, don't hammer it like 3 minutes, 5 minutes per rat. each session, you know, or do it multiple times a day, 3 minutes 3 times a day, or 5 minutes once a day. But you've got to keep it really regular while you kind of build up their confidence. But check out Shadow the Rat, really good, really cool YouTube channel.
Yeah, and definitely with mammals, consistency tends to be the key and stuff, and consistent cues and stuff, whether that's tigers.
I would say, I would say as well, don't expect to be having fun right away. The first few sessions, the first few days or weeks or whatever, you can have your head in your hands. But once you all get the hang of it, you know, they've got to learn how to learn, you know, and once you first get the first breakthrough or whatever, everything will come quicker and easier, and then you can start being creative and it'll start getting really fun. But a lot of times, you know, at the beginning, you can just think, oh my God, you know, nothing. And you'll have good days and bad days. But just do everything in little baby steps. And if your animal starts getting confused or going off track, you just go back a step, or you go back 2 steps. You go back to basics until they master each stage, and then you can start to build it up. Ideally, you want to kind of create a scenario where failure isn't even an option, basically. Not in as much as you're going to punish them or go, but you set the scene so they can only succeed. And it's a much easier way to success. Yeah. What's that real dead bird behind Grace? You know what, guys? Normally when I do a live stream, I try and set myself up so my vivs are looking all sexy and it looks all official and stuff, but I'm the wrong way around in my living room today. What I've got behind me is what it is a papier-mâché kite. It's a real working kite, but it's got fabric arms, fabric wings, and a papier-mâché body. I don't know how old it is. I think it's vintage, of like this giant crow, but it's actually sitting on top of a set of, you might be able to see just there, is sitting on top of some fallow deer antlers that were gifted to me by the owner of the Cairngorm Reindeer Centre for my birthday many years ago as a bit of a joke, because the last time I'd seen her before that, I was helping them out with a very large scale fallow deer catch up, which is quite a thing. It's a story for another day because we're running out of time. But long story short, we were catching these fallow deer and I literally got scalped by a very large bull that knocked me out, and I had to get my head stitched back on. Massive scar behind my ear, around the back of my head. So then they so our mum found those out in the woods. I was like, you've got to give this rat a grace. But yeah, it is a model bird as well. There is quite a lot of taxidermy in the room though. I've got a few, I used to do a bit of taxidermy myself, and yeah, so I have quite a bit around the room as well. Magpie and woodpeckers and some birds of prey and bits and pieces like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So yeah, so what things have you currently got in your collection animal wise? And you mentioned obviously the cockroaches. Did you say you got an owl?
We've got 2 owls now. Yeah, I've got 2 barn owls. Rook, although he's retired now, he doesn't work anymore. Various snakes, lots of boa constrictors, loads of rats, mice, goldfish, fire salamanders. I keep marsh frogs because they are the best mimic that I can use within the realms of legislation for looking like a common frog, a British common frog. They're protected by legislation. Ah, thanks. So yeah, we use marsh frogs, although I shit myself taking those out because obviously they're really powerful, really jumpy and nervous, and I can't lose those because then I will be breaking wildlife legislation. But that's why the marsh frogs. And I've also got an American toad for the same reason. It looks like a British common toad, but isn't protected by UK wildlife legislation. A few other sort of toady, froggy bits. beardy, leopard gecko, all the stuff that's really great for education and encounters and stuff. The only pet reptile we've got is the Eurymastix, because he doesn't, he's not into going out. So he's just a character that we have at home. We got pygmy hedgehogs. We actually got a licensed wildlife rescue European hedgehog that I think is the only licensed working wild hedgehog in the UK.
Oh, nice.
He lives, big old boy, who was a rescue, I want to say like 4 years ago, like super, super tame, really friendly and handleable. He's only got one eye and lots of scars on the other face, on the other side of his face. But actually, he did an Anne Hathaway movie that we shot during lockdown, and it was called Lockdown. But I think it went to like Sky or HBO or something, so I haven't seen it. It looked really good in the trailer. And he was like the opening scene, foraging in a garden. But yeah, so like loads of bits and pieces. There's tarantulas and scorpions, bit of everything. What do I think about service dogs? Can you elaborate on that question? I think service dogs are great. Well, I mean, in terms of like help dogs or dogs that
Steve's asked, whether it means guide dogs, which guide dogs are doing incredible work.
Yeah, I'm absolutely pro working animals of any kind, so long as they are trained kindly and using positive force-free techniques, properly looked after. I would say probably a lot of service dogs have a better quality of life than a lot of pet dogs.
Dogs in the police. Yeah, police dogs.
Dogs in police. Just like police horses, really. I can't say I don't have a huge amount of knowledge on it. I've got friends that work with dogs in IPO, and a lot of the police do that kind of stuff as well. And I've met those dogs, and they all seem happy, and the training seems great. From what I understand, training police dogs within, for the job has changed a huge amount, particularly in the last 10 years, in terms of the techniques that are used. I've got a couple of friends that I do some film work with, and both of them were police dog handlers, and they're amazing trainers, and they've got very happy dogs. But I'm probably not the best qualified. That's the extent of my knowledge on it, really.
Yeah.
Oh, cool, Steve. Okay. Yeah, I think personally, as somebody that works with working animals and training working animals, I do it for education as well as entertainment industry. I've got a huge amount of respect and time for anyone that trains working animals. For me, I think ultimately, I get that not everyone is going to train every animal the same. There's lots of different great ways of training animals. There's lots of more, say, forceful ways of training animals. I'm always going to be pro positive reinforcement, operant conditioning, force-free training, and doing it right. No matter what it's for. I don't mind what an animal is being trained for. I don't think the dog cares if it's teaching people in a university, or if it's sniffing out bombs, or if it's just a companion animal. That animal doesn't know, like the idea of sort of this kind of ethical idea, of something is right or wrong, like entertainment is wrong, but if it's a service dog, it's right. Well, the dog doesn't give a shit so long as it's not getting beaten up and it's getting its dinner at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? That's my opinion. So I think working animals is a really good thing so long as they are treated correctly. Yeah, that's it. Lots of police dogs and a lot of working dogs end up going and living with their trainers or going into adoptive homes. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Why not? These animals have got incredible skills that we don't, and they can save a lot of human lives, whether it's on the front line or sniffing out drugs, or helping recover people from earthquakes, or just people like with epilepsy or hidden disabilities lead more normal lives, you know. Oh, that's really cool. Yeah, scent training's wicked. And you guys that want to train your rats, Shadow the Rat does some tutorials on scent training your rats as well to like locate different smells. Yeah, I think, you know, a lot of these working animals, I think probably all of them that do it well and are trained and handled well, it's all done like fun, isn't it? Fun and games. Like even when I was working, we had tigers that were doing film work. You know, we started with them as little cubs. Everything was play oriented. Even going into the film studios, that was where they would go and have their playtime. And when they're adults and they're doing it for real, they just think it's playtime, you know, and everything just super positive for them.
And that's it. It's that positive reinforcement. And so that then the animal wants to actually do stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I don't have any qualms what the story, the bigger story is, or what the end game is. You know, so long as it's, you know, for me, it's about the process and it's about the animal's welfare.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you might scare the dealers. Well, they've got, you know, those Gambian pouch rats that they use for sniffing out landmines and bombs. I do believe that they have some that they've been working with for sniffing drugs as well. The ones that blow my mind are the dogs now that are being trained to sniff out endangered species. There are dogs that are trained to sniff out and locate great crested newts and even like certain rare plants, so that ecologists can take them out when they're doing field survey work. I think that's cool.
The rhino iguana that Leah's mentioning is Carmen. That's here at Sheffield.
It's the specific rhino iguana.
Specific rhino iguana.
She came from Colchester, didn't she?
Chesington.
That's it. Yeah.
She was at Chesington, yeah. That's because Carmen now, if she's a bit of a diva, if you go in the enclosure, you need to give her a scratch.
Aren't all rhino iguanas divas? They're just one way or the other on the diva scale.
Yeah, she's on the side of you. Yep, you're coming in there. You give me a scratch. Come on. Sort of thing. And if you don't, she may not let you leave.
Oh dear! I used to work with a porcupine a bit like that. It could go south quite quickly with him.
Going there sometimes and as a volunteer, just there like I tried to clean out the water, but Carmen decided to sit on me.
Amazing. Oh, training bees is cool. Very cool. Yeah, there's all this amazing untapped stuff, isn't it?
I can answer, Harry. We do not buy them. We do not buy stuff, and we're actually moving on some of our parrots anyway.
Yeah, it's tricky with zoos now, isn't it? Everything has to be part of like a collection plan and more geared towards legitimate endangered species breeding programs, doesn't it?
That's it. Like, you know, we still get, you know, sometimes weekly a phone call or an email being like, "Oh, I want this rehome, and can you take it?" And I'm actually often going, especially if it's a reptile, because it comes to me, I'm like, I need to contact the National Centre for Reptile Welfare, just because it's a national centre. Like, there's many other rescues and they're fantastic, but so that's an easy one to at least contact that can then advise a bit more than what we can as a zoo.
Yeah, for sure. And they've got such a massive network of volunteers and people like us that they can arrange couriering and get everywhere really quickly, can't they?
As zoos, we can't just take in any animal. It's getting more and more difficult from private as well. And stuff from anything private, it's getting more and more difficult to do and especially with birds now with avian flu, it's even more difficult.
Oh, don't. Yeah. We've all got to cover our aviaries up again now, haven't we? And
And so we had a meeting about it the other day with our vet about like, what are the current sort of guidelines and everything, because they ain't going anywhere. Kind of thing, like what should we do?
Yeah, we're back on covering aviaries and putting foot dips in, aren't we?
We're not here.
Really? That's very interesting.
That hasn't been advised for our area.
Funny you bring it up. I haven't actually had a chance to like look it up myself. I've been keeping a sort of a weather eye, because Malden, which is just up the road from me, a lot of times has come under a complete like lockdown mode, and I've been okay where I am, but it's not too far away. And I was chatting to Becky from Teaching Talents, because they've got owls and they go out and about and whatever, and someone else, and they've now been told to cover aviaries and put foot dips in, but the current legislation hasn't, or the current guidelines currently aren't talking about, well, they never mention what it's like for those of us that do education. It's all just geared at like poultry farmers. So we don't know if we can take our animals out, because I mean, I think I can't see how you could justify there being a problem with taking an owl out of a covered aviary in a box into somebody's house or town hall, working it inside, and then taking it back in your car. There's absolutely nothing it can come into contact with, or vice versa, with any wild animal, but it doesn't say you can, doesn't say you can't in the legislation. And actually, in the midst of it, last winter, falconry was still allowed to go ahead. So people that were hunting and doing pest control, you were just, it was just suggested that you do not allow your birds to eat the ducks that they catch. Although I think a lot of that seemed to cater very much towards the richies that still want to do all their game stuff.
Money talks. Hey, Kathy. And also Harry, from a personal point, I wouldn't get anything from that place. I wouldn't trust anything from that particular shop stuff anymore. I went there a few months ago and it was horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And I think Steve said he popped by. Was it today, Steve, or yesterday, or whatever? And he said it's still horrendous. There's just everything loose. All the reptiles and birds are free ranging around this shop. Stuff.
Yeah, do you know what? I'm not Cambridge based anymore, as you know, but I've heard a lot about it. And
so I popped in.
I'm not going to say too much, but I will say I used to love it when Neil Harris owned it, and it was my local for years and years and years. I know it did this over the years, but I had a good relationship with them.
It's the new owners. It's the people that run it now and stuff like. Yeah, just some of the things I saw. Yeah, an adult rhino iguana in the tortoise table.
I know there's a lot of dodgy skunk breeding there as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there's some dodgy stuff going on there. So
shame.
And just things, just wandering around. You just sort of I don't agree with this.
I'd say it makes you one, and that's a great example, which takes us back full circle to not all AAL holders being created equal.
That's it. Yeah,
because
there's some amazing shops out there.
There's stuff like what you've just mentioned categorically goes against a lot of the direct guidelines.
Yep.
When you think about, safety for the animals, biosecurity, safety for the public coming in, providing the best environments for the animals, and
there are some fantastic shops out there, and you see, this way. I say this way, but you got Ely Exotics. They're fantastic. They're fairly new shop.
I've never been up there. I have to check it out. Yeah, we're lucky that we've got some good ones around me as well.
They're Witchwood way. You kind of like it basically opened just after the first lockdown. It was like, wow. It was like setting it up, started setting it up, and then lockdown happened. He's like, oh bugger. Stuff. But you know, he knows what he's doing. He worked for Monkfield for years, and he's worked. You know, he worked at another shop for years as well, so he knows what he's doing, and he's set up a really, really good shop and stuff. And there are some fantastic ones up and down the country, which definitely support good shops.
For sure, the guys at the Creature Cabin are brilliant. I don't know if you follow them on Facebook.
I've heard good things. I follow them. I've never been, but I've heard good things.
I've never been in, but they're brilliant guys, and I just love everything they stand for. Like their display enclosures are, you know, they aim to have most of their enclosures like good examples of actual enclosures, like size wise and setup wise, you know, just to lead by a better example. Because I think there's a lot of, you know, we're preaching to the choir here, aren't we? But I think there are a lot of regular owners that go into a pet shop, reptile shop, and you know, everything's in a 2 foot by 1 foot, whatever, you display tank because it's there for a couple of weeks, but that's what people are emulating at home.
That's it.
Like, you know, yeah. But there's the shops have got such a huge responsibility, haven't they? I think to educate and really lead by example and sort of, you know, promote like modern science-based husbandry and you know, stock only the things that people really going to need and encourage people to buy more different diet items and
that's it.
put on everything and you know whatever else and you know only choose like suitable species. And Creature Cabin are cool, yeah, they get some really unusual species in actually, and they're kind of stuff that but things that are just as hardy, but yeah, they do some and they share some great posts from they're part of a really nice network of other really good reptile shops that share like really educational posts.
It's really nice to see that so many are getting aboard. Like you know, never been there, but snakes and adders. Like Chaz is so outspoken and stuff about things. And stuff. And then yeah, recently they've done a whole post about you know support your local shop and various shops up and down the country kind of thing. And some of the ones you see, like, what is it, Elmsworth, they have a croc monitor. They've got like this awesome looking enclosure and stuff.
Yeah.
With ponds and stuff. You're like, that's a shop.
Oh, you know, like Wrigley's, I don't know if they still do, but like back in the day, they kept a full-sized boa, a full-sized sulcata to be like, this is what it's going to turn into, which I think is really important.
Yeah, can you maintain it? It's a bit like, Swallow Aquatics. I've always had a full-grown sulcatas. So like, this baby we're selling is going to turn into this. Can you? This is how you need to keep it. Sort of thing. That's how we're keeping it. And so, can you match this kind of thing?
Oh, it sounds like you've got a really good Swallow Aquatics. My local one is diabolical for reptiles.
Oh, it's on the fence sometimes. Some things are really good. Sometimes, like when it comes to tortoises, they are quite good because the guy who runs it's very much tortoise based, and even was in was chair of the Norfolk Tortoise Group for a while and stuff. So he had a go at a local zoo to both of us that has a lot of sulcatas. He had a go at them once about their sulcatas and how they were keeping them and what they were feeding them and stuff. Because he told me about it. He went in, they said they were giving them fruit and tomatoes and all this, that, the other. Like, what the hell are you doing? They need grass. They just need grass.
No. Just feed it sticks and they'll be fine.
Don't do this. You're going to kill them and stuff. But in other things, it's sort of like sometimes, like, not sure sometimes, because some things are just random mixes of animals in the enclosures. Sometimes they're like, okay. You can't really quarantine that. That's a bit difficult. I think as a swallow, they're an okay swallow.
I think it's one of those ones a bit like pets at home. Do you know what I mean? Like they're only going to be as good as the staff they have, and some of them are amazing.
Yeah, don't. And anything that's a chain of any sort, even if it's just a small chain, it's sometimes all they've done actually is pay for the name, sort of thing, and it's sometimes nothing to do with with the people there or whatever, same like maiden aquatics, you get some very different maiden aquatics, some that are fantastic and some that really aren't good at all. So we have two around here. One's fantastic and one's okay. So anyway, I don't think anyone else has any other questions.
No, we've talked each other's ears off, haven't we?
I've gone over the
you said... I can hear my family upstairs like, is she done yet?
So just only gave me an hour.
all the little rats in the garage crying little rat tears because I'm late with their dinner.
We'll let you go and get all your animals fed. But where can people find you? I've been putting links in, but
yes, you've very kindly chucked links to my website, and you can find Reptiles Etc on Facebook. Although there is also, I've discovered now, a recently opened reptile shop in America, also called Reptiles Etc. And for a long time, they kept uploading pictures and tagging me in them, thinking it was them. So if you, the right one is a picture of a couple of us with a big yellow berm, or the handle is @reptilesetc.co.uk. You can find me. I've actually got 3 Instagram channels. So my barn owls have one, which is @Bourbon Barn Owl. If you like barn owls, my video one is @Grace Dickinson's Wildlife, and I think Phil tagged me on his Instagram in that one, so you can find it that way. And my sort of everything else general daily picture type shenanigans, where you'll get probably about 98% animals, 2% dinners, is @Reptiles Etc, all one word. Or you can just like search my name, Grace Dickinson. And I apparently have a very large digital footprint, so you'll find me all the way that way. I'm the most active on the Reptiles Etc Facebook page, and probably the Instagrams as well. But yeah, guys, you've been amazing and so welcoming. Thank you for having me and for brilliant questions. I'd love to come back again.
Yeah, we'll have that again. And also, you do some of the invert shows. You was at the Bedford one.
Yeah, I'm usually knocking around. So if you see me, come and say hello.
So are you going to the Brighton show at all, or the Manchester show?
When's Brighton? November.
Yeah, 13th, I believe.
You know what? I haven't booked onto any as a trader. But my friend who does the very high end, very giant snails is growing a load on. So whenever they're big enough, you'll see us about somewhere. November, I think probably not. It's already looking, I think I've already got every weekend day booked up. When is the Manchester one?
The 6th of November.
Oh, well, no. Realistically, it probably won't be until the new year. Probably not until the new year, yeah, unless I get in a real pick. What day is the Brighton one?
26th. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, probably won't make it. Oh, thank you very much. Very organised.
Stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm probably working. So yeah, I'll probably be back out on the circuit in the new year. Either more than likely trading if I'm around. And anyone wants to buy some giant peppered cockroaches, the great grandkids of Nancy, as featured in St. Maud, should charge double for them. Cockroach signature. But yeah, you guys will see me around. You guys will see me around and connect on the socials. And if anybody has any other questions that they think of later, or would like me to do any 5-minute sort of features on my video channel, and there's anything you'd particularly like to know about, please let me know, because I'm much better at creating content to demand, on demand. If people are like, hey, show me snakes or talk to me about this, then I will usually deliver.
Biggest apology.
And I'm sure I'll see you guys all out on the circuit. And yeah, thanks for joining. And have a fab week, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Probably see most of you in the chat tomorrow night on Scott's stream, most probably. Stuff, but cheers for joining. Hopefully, Wednesday's video, which is that one, going to be walkthrough of Stratford Butterfly Farm. Actually, I was there for a zookeeper's day out and stuff with the terrestrial invertebrate working group. So we had a little day out together. So we're going to do a walkthrough of that on Wednesday, and then and then some other things coming. But thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you all another time. And we